There. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So today we're doing a kind of a one-off episode. It's not something I do all the time. There's some things I like to talk about here and there. So when I get a chance to throw them in, if I'm not too busy, I throw these in. This is one of those episodes. It's called The Live Experience. Some of you have seen, I've got many episodes of this out. At one time, it was a show on the channels on Friday nights, and I decided I didn't have enough live material because I wasn't a huge live material fan. So I decided I couldn't possibly come up with something. I was running out of material, so I decided I didn't want to just start putting subpar stuff on. So I took it off the air and just put it all out as a one-off show so that when I did get something I wanted to talk about, I could throw it on. Today, the live album I've chosen is one I've gotten recently. I have two or three others that I want to do, but I decided I would do this one because I was excited when I got it, and that's Seconds Out by Genesis. This is a live album by them. I believe it came out in 77, October 14th, 77, yep. Let me just call some stuff here up. So this was recorded in July 76 at the Apollo in Glasgow, and then again on the 21st of January 77 at the Del Montfort Hall, in Leicester. The Carpet Crawlers, they called that one. Then the 12th and 14th of June 1977 in the Palace de Sports in Paris. It's 95 or so minutes, 95 and a half minutes long, so it's a double album for those of you who are not aware of it. Out on Charisma and Atlantic record labels, and produced by David Henschel and Genesis. So it's got that same sort of format on the back that you get with a lot of the older Genesis albums. It's kind of a little square bubble with all the songs listed, but not necessarily the lengths. It does give you the numbers though, like what position they are on it, which is kind of different. Usually they'll give you the times, but not the numbers. But in this case they did. So this came out 1977. So probably right after Wind in the Wuthering, I would think would be the album that it came out after. That would make sense. So you don't have anything from And There Are Three. So this was kind of, some people say that the first, the last Genesis album that was kind of full on prog was Wind in the Wuthering, but maybe this was probably that one. Technically speaking, it was, although it's not a studio album. It is a live album of already pre-recorded tracks. So I'm going to give you the personnel on this too, because it's not just the four that we come to know. So on this is Tony Banks on electric piano, Hammond organ, ARP Pro soloist, Mellotron, Epiphone, and 12-string guitar, as well as backing vocals. You've got Mike Rutherford here on electric 12-string and bass guitar, as well as 8-string bass guitar and 12-string guitar, and Moog Taurus bass pedals, as well as backing vocals. Then you have Steve Hackett on his Gibson Les Paul, and on a Hokada 12-string guitar. You got Phil Collins playing lead vocals here. Premier and Gretchen drums periodically throughout the album. He is not the main drummer here, even though he is the main drummer for Genesis on most of their albums. On this case, because he is the lead vocalist, he's up front. So they had a couple of backup drummers here. The first one, a well-known backup. Well, they're both well-known, but the next, Chester Thompson here, Pearl drums, percussion. He He's the main drummer here, playing most of the stuff. Most people have come to know him as the main drummer for Genesis. In their later period, the post Peter Gabriel period of live stuff and touring, that kind of stuff. And then you also have Bill Bruford also filling here with his Ludwig and Heyman drums and percussion. Only though, I think the percussion part is only on a Cinema Show, but maybe the drums as well. So both, I think, are for Bill Bruford. Bill Bruford of Yes and King Crimson fame, for those of you who don't know who he is, and I can't imagine anybody watching this show on a regular basis wouldn't know. So this is a, I'm going to put the tracks up here on the computer just because I don't really want to put my glasses on right now, so I'll be able to read it. So side 1 features, I believe, 8 tracks, and then side 2 only has the 4 tracks, basically because Supper's Ready is on side 2, right? So side 1, album 1. So you got 2 albums basically here. So you've got 8 of the tracks on the first disc and 4 of the tracks on the back disc. So side 1 has 4 tracks, side 2, 4 tracks, side 3 has only 1 track, and then the final side has 4 tracks. I forgot that it was done on vinyl, so I was thinking that CDs, I was thinking in terms of CDs, was actually they were giving it to me here in forms of as the album would have appeared. So the first track out, of course, is Squonk. This is a fantastic track. Well done here. Very similar in sound to the album, but of course it has the live effects on it. Mike Rutherford was the writer of this particular. Rutherford and Banks wrote this track. It's probably because it came from Trick of the Tail, or Trick of the Tail. A Trick of the Tail, sorry. Somebody corrected me on that last month, so I'm trying to remember that there's an A at the front. So A Trick of the Tail, it came off of originally. Was probably my favorite track initially from that album. That and Dance on the Volcano, so that is really well done here, strong. Next track out is The Carpet Crawlers, one of Genesis' best songs, I think. One of their, I wouldn't even call it underrated tracks. It doesn't get as much talk about as it should because I think it's an absolutely killer track. I don't listen to that particular album, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I don't listen to that as much. It's a bit too long for me, and there's only about a half a dozen of the tracks on the album that I really like a lot, and this is of course one of them. So The Carpet Crawlers. So it's kind of interesting to hear Phil Collins' voice on this, although to be honest with you, this was the kind of the first version of that track that I heard, because I listened to this album came on and we had taped bits and pieces of it off the radio when they playing it one afternoon, me and my friend. So I had it on cassette, and so my first experience with the song, the songs on that were Gabriel era songs were sung by Phil Collins, and so I got kind of used to that. So Phil Collins' version was, to me, in my mind, even though it isn't in reality, the first versions I had heard. So that's the way I thought of the song. So when I heard Gabriel do them much later, it's kind of different, but I actually prefer the Gabriel version vocals for this particular track. The next song is Robbery, Assault, and Battery. This is a killer track. In later years, I think this has become more of a favorite of mine from A Trick of the Tail. The version on here is good, though. Very good. This was a Collins and Banks written track. Absolutely killer. Yeah. Next up, the last song on the side 1 is Afterglow. Peter Banks. Peter Banks. Got my wrong band. Done this before. My head's been clogged up a couple times. I've mentioned Yes keyboardist when it was clearly not a Yes keyboardist. So anyways, we're talking about Tony Banks here, of course. So Tony Banks wrote this track, Afterglow. This is a decent version of it. This is not a song that I've ever really paid much attention to. I've always liked it, but it's just not been one of my top favorite songs by Genesis. But on this album, it's pretty solid. So I'm just going to pull this down a little bit so I can see the rest of the tracks without having to go off of the album. The next track up, Firth of Fifth, very well known, very well put together track. I like this track a lot, really well. I think I actually prefer the live version here even more than the studio version, which is kind of different. Usually I prefer the studios, but in this case I like this one more. I Know What I Like in My Wardrobe. This is one of the more underrated Genesis songs that I actually think is one of their best. It's always a song that I look forward to hearing when I play either this or the original version. Both killers. So this is we're now on side 2, in case I did not mention that. And then you have The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, of course, the self-titled one from that album, played here live. I don't actually like this version. I don't get me wrong, I love Peter Gabriel's voice on the original version a lot on this song. On this version, I do like Phil Collins' voice a lot, but he kind of does that little kind of stuff that he took to doing later in his career with Genesis, that more kind of vocally charged parts. Not really crazy about it here on this particular track, but it's not bad. It's just I just prefer the original version more. The music box closing section, just the closing section, done well. It's good. I wish they could have done the whole song. That would have been better, I think. But time was more of a constraint back when you were putting vinyl out songs on vinyl. I'm sure if they had originally recorded it on CD, it would have been on here in its entirety. So we now flip to side 3. Even longer on here than it is on the original Foxtrot album. Supper's Ready. I actually like Phil Collins' version of this song, his vocal version of the song, quite a bit. It's strong. It was my first version. The only problem we had was that it was skipping on the radio when they first put it on because it was still on vinyl. And it would skip, so they kept pulling it off and then trying it again. And then eventually they just gave up and let it play out. So I don't really have a full, solid beginning to end version of this song on the cassette when we had it. So when I got this album, I was happy to not have to deal with that issue again. Yeah, so very, very strong. They recorded this on the 12th, 13th, and 14th of June, 1977, for the album. Very, very strong song here. I think as good as the original Supper's Ready is, and it's absolutely fantastic, I think this version might even be better. I think it might be better. I do like Phil Collins' version of this quite a bit. So, and now we're going to go on to the final side of the album. 3 tracks. Starts out with Cinema Show. Drumming is fantastic, of course. It's Bill Bruford here. Doing most of it. I think Chester did some percussion on this as well. He may have actually done some drumming as well, but I think he pretty much was doing the percussion here. Him and Bill Bruford doing both doing percussion here. This was recorded July 9th, 76 at the Apollo in Glasgow, Nova Scotia. In Glasgow, Scotland. Boy, I'm really out of it today. I keep getting these pop-ups, which are throwing me for a loop. The next track, and actually this is one of my favorite Genesis tracks. I think it's probably the best Tony Banks keyboard track, in my opinion. There are some others that are really excellent too, but this is the one I like. Dance on a Volcano, of course, one of those tracks I talked about before being one of my favorite original tracks off of A Trick of the Tail. And then it finishes off with Los Endos. another track from A Trick of the Tail as well. So not very much in the way of, I was hoping they might have played Watchers of the Sky, but I think their thinking was that they had recorded an album with the same basic people in '73 with the addition of Gabriel, when they still had Gabriel, and they had done 5 tracks, which none were included on this album. At least I don't think there was any. I'm trying to think. I don't think any of these tracks appeared on that album. So I think what they did is they did some tracks that weren't included on that album, this as a kind of an add-on to the Till That live album, which is my favorite Genesis live album because it has, actually the music box was on that. I do remember the music box, the knife. Now I'm drawing a real blank. Probably should have gone here. Watchers of the Sky, of course. Damn, my brain just isn't working fully today. I know the song I want to say, and I can't think of what it is. Revenge of the Giant Hogweed, Return of the Giant Hogweed, sorry. And there was one other track which I am now completely lost on because of that. But yeah, all good versions on that live album. Not really included in here, except for the last bit of the music box, which is on the third side, or the second side, I should say. So, yeah. So great. Yeah, I was losing my throat there for a bit. Still losing it, but not too bad. So this is a really good album. I would say it's great. Many feel this is the best Genesis live album. It's hard to say that that's not true. I have my preference for that first Genesis live album because I've had it for so many years, and I like all the tracks on it. But for many people, this is the kind of top of the hill for live albums for Genesis. So I'm not going to argue with that, like I said. Sorry, I highly recommend it. If you like live albums and you like Genesis, you're going to like this. Of course, if you like live albums and you like Genesis, you probably already have this. That would make perfect sense. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit the like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell above my head so you don't miss any more. And if you have any comments about anything I said, I may have said a few things incorrectly. I hope I didn't, but I may have. If I have, you can correct them below. If you want to just talk about the album and your favorite tracks, or why you like them, or the differences between these live vocal performances by Phil Collins and the stuff done by Peter Gabriel before, you can make comments about that. Anything you want to do, be nice to hear and have a discussion about. So anyways, and I always learn from people because people will ask me questions and then I have to go and actually look it up to see if what I'm thinking is actually what is actually the truth. So anyways, I hope to see you all throughout the week, and we will talk to you later. So have yourself a good evening. Take care and goodbye.